Celtics coaching staff was open to acquiring Melo at the deadline. The Boston Celtics coaching staff was in favor of trading for Carmelo Anthony before February's NBA trade deadline, but franchise president Danny Ainge was against the idea, sources told the New York Post Mark Berman. Berman doesn't identify which members of the staff backed the trade or specify whether head coach Brad Stevens was among them. A report surfaced in January indicating the Celtics had no interest in dealing Anthony, despite engaging in exploratory talks about the 10-time All-Star during the 2015-16 season. The story will receive oxygen from the fact that Boston is currently down 2-0. Well, at the time that this report is 2-0, but right now it's 2-1. In its first round series to the Chicago Bulls. Given those circumstances, a large segment of the Celtics fan base has been critical of Ainge's stand-pat approach at the trade deadline, especially given how the organization's wealth of draft assets. If the team can't mount a comeback, Boston will become only the 6th number 1 seed in history to be knocked out of the first round of the NBA playoffs. One of Ainge's reported issues with acquiring Anthony, who turns 33 next month, was the salary cap space his contract would take up as the Celtics make a run at free agents such as Gordon Hayward this summer. Boston also has a 25% chance of the best of all team that landing the number 1 pick in June's draft thanks to the Brooklyn Nets. With the Knicks president Phil Jackson publicly stating last week that Anthony will be better off somewhere else, it's a near certainty that the franchise player will be moved this summer. In the meantime, New York tabloids are hammering the star over lurid reports regarding his personal life. So, we all know that the Celtics would have been the best possible destination for Carmelo Anthony at the trade deadline. You know, we heard the rumors. You know, I've said it a bunch of times. I mean, I don't know how many times I've talked about Carmelo Anthony on this podcast this season, but we all know that the Celtics would have been the best possible destination, not only for Carmelo Anthony, but for the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. As, first of all, Melo would be joining a potential contender in Boston, which is something that he's been wanting to do. Melo's been wanting to win. That's been Melo's main objective with going into this whole trade sort of scenario. He wants to win. He's tired of losing in New York. He wants to win a championship. He wants to contend. And by being traded to Boston, he would be moving to a potential contender in Boston. Along with that, the Knicks would receive possibly the best return they can get for Melo, as Melo would be a huge loss for the Knicks, and the Knicks are looking to rebuild. What's the best way to rebuild? Is to receive young assets and to receive young talent as well, and to receive draft picks. And Boston is one of those teams besides Philadelphia that is a contender and has all that. They have the draft picks, they have the young talent, so it would have been a perfect trade between all three parties involved. However, Danny Ainge decided not to trade for Carmelo Anthony, as he felt there would have been a better option out there. Now, in my opinion, I think it was dumb for the Celtics not to make a move for Melo, as we can see it right now in the playoffs. This Celtics team is flawed, as they really have only one scoring option, and that is Isaiah Thomas, which means had they gotten Melo, they would have added one of the league's best scorers to pair with another great scorer in Thomas. Now let's put it in perspective. When you're in the playoff series, the defenses start to be better on your team. Why? Because of scouting. Because the teams are able to make adjustments between games. So basically, teams are able to lock in on another team's offensive scheme. And now Boston's offensive scheme is to let Isaiah Thomas carry the load. And that's basically an easy thing for defenses to pick up on, because all they will need to do is to lock up Isaiah Thomas. And that's one thing that Chicago has been doing. They've been locking up Isaiah Thomas. And I know Isaiah has been going through some tough times himself with the death of his sister. Our thoughts go out to him, and but if you it's kind of a similar thing that happens with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry in Toronto, where you are the main focal point of the offense. You're going to be double teamed, triple teamed, trapped. You're not going to be able to breathe. And that has created a big problem for the Celtics, as without their primary scorer scoring the ball, they aren't winning games. And that's why they're now in a 2-1 hole with the Chicago Bulls. And so if the Celtics were smart, they would have gotten Melo at the trade deadline. Why? So that there would be not one but two primary scoring options on the Celtics, which means that the defense will be split up, which is that they would have to focus their attention not only on Isaiah Thomas, but Carmelo Anthony as well. And since Melo, being the more experienced veteran, being the guy who's scored basically over in any situation, he will be able to keep his focus and will be able to score and show up in playoffs. And think about how motivated he would be to finally be in the playoffs, to be able to compete for a championship. You'll be receiving probably the best Melo we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years now. That would have been amazing for the Celtics, as they'd have now two guys who can score 30 on any given night, on any defense. That is important on a playoff team. So think about it this way. You have two of the best scorers in the league, so you have Melo paired with Isaiah Thomas. You pair that with Boston's great defense and ball movement. This can result in a potential NBA championship team. Now, Danny Ainge apparently did not believe that to be true. And according to the report, this vision was seen by even the coaching staff, who felt Melo could have really helped the Celtics. Now, from Ainge's point of view, he wanted a younger guy in Hayward. He wanted a guy who can, be younger and sort of match Boston's sort of young vibe they got going on there. And from what I can tell you, I feel that from the success of the Jazz this season, I feel that Hayward will not leave Utah. He won't be going anywhere. So, which means that Ainge, with his sort of plan in his mind to get Hayward, I think it's kind of useless, as Hayward will eventually re-sign with the Jazz. So this means that it makes Ainge look even more retarded, as you could have gotten Melo for a better deal in the middle of the season. You could have saved yourself, hypothetically, if the Celtics lose to the Bulls in the first round, you could have saved yourself from a potential embarrassing moment, and you could have been potentially an Eastern Conference Finals or be in the NBA Finals at this point. So yeah. So therefore, I still feel that the best thing for both the Knicks, Melo, and Boston is to make this trade happen in the offseason. I think that if this trade didn't happen at the trade deadline, it will happen in the offseason, because I think Boston will realize the error of their ways, and they will say, you know what, maybe we can't get Hayward, maybe we can't get these guys. Let's get Melo. Let's take a flyer on Melo. Let's see what we can do. And remember, Melo's already signed for the next couple of years. So it's not like you're signing him as a free agent where you have to pay him max money. You're paying him what is already on his contract, which by this NBA standard is pretty average. He's not getting paid a tremendous amount of money. Melo's getting paid $120 million, which, if you think about it logically, really isn't a lot of money, where you see Mike Conley getting paid $150. So from that point of view, it makes sense to pick him up. We've already known what Melo has done in New York, so all the Celtics really have to do is to put up a solid offer. We know Melo is done in New York. That is for sure. Phil Jackson confirmed it. Melo is done. He wants to get rid of Melo, and I think Melo, from all this shit he's been dealing with, I think he wants to get out too. I think he's finally done with all this torment, and he wants to win now. And I think all the Celtics would need to do, if the Knicks want to get rid of Melo, Melo wants to leave, all the Celtics have to do is come up with a good offer. And I would say that if a hypothetical offer, I would give up Jay Crowder and one or two young up-and-coming players, which the Celtics do have, and draft picks. I think that would be good enough to entice the Knicks. If you want to, you could throw in a young guy and the number one pick if Boston really wants to give it up. Because remember, I've been saying this all along. Boston doesn't need the number one pick. You don't need it. Maybe if you want to get Markelle Fultz and you want to get rid of Marcus Smart, then I would see it as that makes more sense, because then you're drafting a point guard to fill in a hole that your team really needs to fill. But if that's not the case, then I don't see the point of a contending team keeping a draft pick when they can trade it away and get a potential superstar in the mix, and also while helping out the Knicks as well and giving them the avenue to rebuild their team properly. But overall, I feel that this move should have already happened. I feel that the Knicks and Celtics should have already made this deal. Carmelo Anthony should be wearing green right now. He should be still playing. We should not see him with all this drama in New York. This drama has been so bad in New York that I think it's even led to Carmelo divorcing from his wife. Like, if it's come to things like that where it's affecting Carmelo's personal life, and this is something that I believe Melo should have commanded for. I think he should be taking a bigger stance on. But it's sad that he hasn't been doing that. It's sad that he hasn't been putting his voice out there, trying to be the aggressor in this scenario. It's really sad to see that from Melo. But at the end of the day, I expect the best from Melo, and I really feel that the Celtics, if they lose in this postseason, will make this move happen. And I think if this move did not happen in the deadline, it will happen sometime in the off season. So we'll see what happens when we get there.